Thank you all so much. Thank you all so much for coming. As we said, this meeting is being recorded. Welcome to our February CCC TUG Labor Market of Love meeting here on a Wednesday. We have a jam-packed agenda, which we'll talk about in a second. As you may or may not know, I'm Kim Coots. I'm a research analyst at MiraCosta College, and I am joined by Sam Homeyer from Everett Community College and Lisa Trescott, also from MiraCosta College, who is the brains behind all of the music that we have at our meetings, and we could not be more grateful for that. So let's get to our agenda. We have a couple of quick announcements, and then we're going to have an update from the Chancellor's Office from Chris Ozuna. And then after that, we are lucky enough to have John Edwards here from the Centers of Excellence to demonstrate some labor market dashboards that are being used in the wild. And then following that, Sam is going to present her labor market dashboard used at Everett. And then after that, we'll wrap things up and talk about our upcoming meeting schedule. So with that, announcements, you may or may not have heard, the Tableau conference is on its way. It's going to be local-ish, San Diego for those of us in Southern California, but all are welcome and encouraged to attend. It's going to be May 5th through the 7th. If you have not done so already and you are planning on going, you want to register as soon as possible so that you get the early bird discounts wherever possible. The education prices for the conference give a significant discount this year. It's not nearly as expensive as it's been in the past. So that might be something to take a look at. And the key highlight of the conference is always IronViz. They have announced our 3 finalists, and I am extremely proud to say that 2 of the 3 finalists for IronViz have actually presented to this group. Brian Moore and Kevin Wee have been our presenters, and Ann Pregler joins the group, and they will be battling head-to-head live and in Technicolor, showing their best Viz skills, and it is definitely something to see. Even if you can't see it in person, watching the stream and seeing kind of the techniques and challenges in real time is actually really, really cool to view. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Lisa, who's going to talk about joining the Slack community.
Oh, I am. I didn't realize this was me.
Sorry.
Yeah. So we've mentioned this many times before, but there is a Slack channel for all things Tableau. We really encourage you to get on there. It's a great place to get feedback and ask people questions and just kind of have your finger on the pulse of what's going on in the community. And then next, someone who needs no introduction, our good friend at the Chancellor's Office, Chris Ozuna, is going to give us a quick update on all things Tableau at the Chancellor's Office. Over to Chris.
Thanks very much. Hi, everyone. My name is Chris Ozuna. I work at the Chancellor's Office. I'm on the internal research team. I wanted to take just a couple minutes to talk a little bit about Data Vista. Hopefully you had heard that there was a 2.4 update that came out in the last couple of weeks. Actually, we'll share my screen just to show you a few things that are relevant, both from a Tableau perspective and just from a kind of system perspective. Okay, so hopefully you can see my browser window, right? So here's the Data Vista homepage. We have a couple of new features here. In terms of reports that are now available, the K-12 Strong Workforce Program now has its own report here under the Reports and Insights. This shows participation and some other metrics for K-12 CTE participation. This is one of those projects where the community colleges aren't necessarily the main provider of these services, but we are responsible for sort of reporting out some of this information. So that dashboard is here. We've been making some changes to the Vision 2030 report to better align it with the July 2025 update that came out last summer. One of the big changes now is that it's including the predicted or the steps towards the goals for everybody in the system. So for example, here, you'll see that for this outcome, overall enrollment, it shows the goal for 2030, which is a 25% increase. And it's also showing the step where we would want people to be. So if you choose your own location, you'll see those same kind of progress markers. The other big change here is the trend view. So now it's showing the actual progress towards the goal in relation to the predicted steps that are needed to reach the goal. So you can see those by the different locales and by specific metrics in the system. So if you wanted to see, for example, vision goal award completion, you'll see the actual progress here in the dark blue line, and then the projected steps of where we would like to be in order to hit the 2030 goals. So those are some kind of Tableau specific changes. Other changes have been made to the resource library, so it's just been kind of cleaned up. We're just accumulating a lot of resources that are hopefully useful, and we want them to stay there as people need them. So we've introduced this sort of icon series. We've removed the kind of thumbnails. It was not kind of just clogging things up. And then we've improved the filters here as well. So just wanted to let you know that this looks a little bit different if you haven't seen it before. A really big change in this release is the addition of a bulk download feature. So now from any page on, now any page on Data Vista, if you go to the data views, you'll see this download data button, and that will take you to this interface. So you can select from the various reports or like collections of metrics, so general admit cohort, snapshot, etc. And you can actually initiate a full download. So like if I did the Vision 2030 report, you can select multiple years at a time. Like you can add them here, as you can see. You can select whichever locale level you're interested in. So I'll just do statewide, and then I'll just get the option within. You can download this as a CSV, which is for most, probably useful for most of us, or a Parquet file, which is a newer file format, if that's something that you're using. And then when you submit that, it will pull that live from the data warehouse. You'll notice here in the bottom right, like you can continue navigating on Data Vista and it will notify you. That's Poppy, our little unofficial mascot to be. It'll notify you when your download is ready. So I can go back to the home page. I can keep using the platform as I like. And then once there's Poppy going by, then once the download is ready, it'll give you a link and you can initiate that download. So that is a new feature that's available, and it will, as you can see, notify you when your export is ready. So that's a new feature that's available. We heard you loud and clear, and so we've been working on introducing that. Please let me know either directly or just our office in general as you're using it, what's useful and what you'd like to see from it in future iterations. It's a custom built tool on the website, so we do have a fair amount of control over what it can do in the future. And then the last thing that I wanted to speak to a little bit is, there we go. If you had been following along with the 2.4 data release, you probably saw that there's been a significant number of data corrections that were made. We had found some errors. A lot of folks, probably folks on this call, had let us know that things seemed a little bit off in some of the metrics. So we released a collection, or I guess a series of fixes that did affect a fair number of the metrics. So some of the big changes have been, or some of the big corrections that we've made have been to the successful enrollment data that we get. So that's from CCC Apply and us correctly excluding fraudulent applications. We found and made a correction to the transfer data that we have, specifically for students who are transferring to or enrolled in a UC campus. And then also some demographic information from students who apply and or enroll at multiple colleges and have different demographic values across those different institutions. So we refer to that as multiple values reported. So we've made a series of corrections. So I wanted to just let everybody know there's a lot of resources on the platform that kind of explain that and can help you and your college navigate through that. And also, if there's any place that you're using or regularly tapping into Data Vista, I just wanted to let you know because you might want to update some of those data pools or those kinds of things. But yeah, I'm happy to answer any questions about any of this, or I'll put my email in the chat if you have any suggestions for future features or anything like that. We're always happy to hear them. So,
is it safe to assume that those corrections affect all of the CCCs, or is it like
It's safe to assume that, yeah.
all
So
of
that
us?
yes, so yeah, it does affect a large number of, well, effectively all of the cohort metrics, and then a fair number of the snapshot metrics.
Okay. Yeah, those fraudulent enrollments are really messing with us all. I mean, maybe we should have a meeting about fraud. Okay, well, if no one else has any questions for Chris, thank you as always for keeping us dialed into what's going on with Data Vista and at the Chancellor's office. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and introduce John Edwards, who is coming to us. He's a research analyst at the San Diego Imperial Center of Excellence, or the COE, where he's been for the last 8 years. And in his role, he supports the region's community colleges by producing data-driven insights and labor market analysis that help align educational programs with workforce demand. And his work plays a key role in guiding decision-making across career education initiatives. And we are excited, John, to take a look at the dashboards that you have to share with us. I'm going to stop so that you can share your screen.
Thank you.
Take it away.
Okay, everyone can see the PowerPoint? Good, okay. Just move this out over here. Okay, great. So thank you for that introduction. As mentioned, John Edwards, research analyst with the San Diego Imperial Centers of Excellence. And today I'm going to be walking you through how our region uses dashboards to work together to support decision-making in our region. So rather than focusing on any single dashboard, this presentation is going to show how in a regional context, program data, performance measures, and equity indicators connect to move us from insight to action. Oh, on cue forward. Here we go. So a little bit about the Centers of Excellence. The mission of the San Diego and Imperial Centers of Excellence is rooted in 4 key pillars: research, training, advocacy, and evaluation. Through research and training, we provide actionable labor market intelligence to support community colleges and workforce partners. And we use this foundation to advocate for the needs of both employers and students, ensuring programs, policies, and practices reflect regional demand and equity goals. Our mission is threefold. First is to build community college capacity to close systemic equity gaps. Second is to unify the regional workforce across San Diego and Imperial counties. And third is to advocate for equitable policy change in education and workforce development. So everything we do is about using data and partnerships to strengthen pathways for students and meet the evolving need of our regional economy. And just for reference, this is a snapshot of the 10 community colleges that we serve at our center. There's 9 in San Diego County and 1 in Imperial County, Imperial Valley College. So with that being said, on to the presentation. So the dashboards are designed to work together as a sequence rather than as separate tools. The starting point is regional context, understanding who we serve and what the communities our colleges operate in have needed. Sorry, with a focus on demographics. From these, the focus shifts to student outcomes, where we look at how students are performing and whether those outcomes are improving over time. Next is program alignment, which helps determine whether our program is offering our program offerings match local labor market demand and lead in employment opportunities. And the final step is equity gaps, where we identify which student populations may be underrepresented or overrepresented, however you want to look at it, or experiencing different outcomes. And together, this framework moves the conversation from who we serve to who we may be missing. And this helps guide more targeted data-informed decisions. So the district profiles provide what I like to call a 10,000-foot view. This dashboard answers a foundational question: who we serve and what is the economic context of our region. It brings together demographics, labor force characteristics, and pretty much any identifying areas of need, or populations of need. The key insight here is that effective strategy starts with a clear understanding of the community and the local economy and not assuming. So, I forgot to mention that I'll be providing a QR code for each one of the dashboards that we go over, but there'll also be a QR code at the very end of the presentation. So you can just download the PowerPoint and you'll have all the QR codes from there as well. And I'll be sharing it with the group so it'll be available on the website. So switching over to the dashboard. Okay. So this is the landing page, which encompasses our district profiles. We have it both in report version as well as the Tableau tool. Of the 10 colleges we serve, they are split into 6 districts. We won't go into explaining how they're separated. We'll just move forward with one example. In this situation, or in this case, we'll go with Maricosta College for no reason whatsoever. And the goal here is to understand who lives in the district and what conditions may shape access to education and workforce participation. And again, you want to be making sure that you're selecting the data tool and not the report. So we click on Maricosta. That'll lead us to the dashboard here. So on the left side, users can select different metrics that would be considered area of needs, such as disability, veterans, poverty status, internet access, or labor force participation here at the bottom. Changing the metric here both updates the map and the table, allowing users to explore different aspects of community of need using the same geographic frame. The map view highlights how these characteristics vary across zip codes within the district. So rather than treating the district as a single population, this helps identify where concentrations of need or opportunity may exist. For example, selecting poverty here quickly reveals areas or area where additional outreach or support strategies might be warranted. You'll see the highest being 92121. Sorry. And then we're aware that even though, yes, it has the highest percentage, based off the total population, that's not going to be a high number of individuals. But many of our previous products have been focused on number of individuals, where the ask for this product was to be focused more on percentages, so we could give a little bit of more attention to those areas that have been overlooked because of the previous method. So you can look here at the table, at the map view, but if you scroll farther down, you'll see a full data table view. You can navigate either through that button or through the tab here. They'll both send you to the same place. And this provides the same information in a sortable format. This is especially useful for users who want to identify specific zip codes and compare values side by side or export data for planning or documentation purposes. So you get all the zip codes that are associated with the district and all the metrics that were cited, again, here on the left side. So everything into one space. So all you have to do is export the data and you can use it as needed. And then switching over to definitions and sources. This tab has all the metrics clearly defined along with the data sources, primarily ACS, the American Community Survey, and are documented so users understand how the data was constructed and how it should be interpreted. So taken together, this dashboard helps ground planning conversations in a community context. It's often used as an entry point for Perkins needs assessments, equity discussions, and program planning by helping colleges understand where students are coming from before examining outcome or program preference. So switching back here. So the district profile data becomes actionable when it's applied to in a real planning process. Colleges commonly use this data for, again, Perkins needs assessments, program justification, and grant narratives, which CBOs, or community-based organizations have found very useful for their own grant writing. And I'm talking about the district profiles, not the Perkins. So instead of using generic language, institutions can point to a specific demographic or labor market condition that can explain why a program or investment is necessary in their district. So before you can start building programs, sometimes is it the need or the money that goes first? Well, this gives you the opportunity to put the writing ahead, or the grant writing ahead. So the next dashboard focuses on Perkins 5 core indicators. And this shifts the conversation from a single year snapshot to performance trends over time. The core question here is, how are programs performing relative to state and federal expectations? And in what direction are they headed? The emphasis is on trends, which helps colleges identify where outcomes are improving and where persistent challenges remain. So Perkins data is often experienced as a compliance requirement, because it is, but the intent behind the dashboard is to make it more usable for planning and improvement. The dashboard pulls multiple years of Perkins core indicators data for colleges in San Diego and Imperial region, and presents it in a way that supports trend analysis, equity conversations, and program level decision making. So going back and start. Okay. So if you're looking at this, if you're not familiar, you might be thinking, what is Perkins? Well, Perkins 5 supports, hopefully it loads. Let's try that one more time. Perkins. Okay, there we go. So Perkins supports career technical education, CTE, by focusing on student outcomes, particularly for special education or special populations. The data shown here comes from the Chancellor's Office core indicator reports and is updated annually. One important thing to keep in mind is that Perkins data reflects lagged cohorts. So each fiscal year is informed by student cohorts from earlier years. That means this dashboard is best used for strategic planning and evaluation rather than real-time performance monitoring. So if we go to the first tab, or I guess the second tab in this instance, one of the most powerful uses of this dashboard is comparing trends across student groups. Over time, by selecting a college, we'll use Maricosta College again, and then top code. Not sure if this group is familiar with top codes, but I'll just give a brief explanation. You'll see top codes referenced throughout many of our dashboards. Top code standing for Taxonomy of Programs, which is the classification system used by the California community colleges only, and that's to group instructional programs. Each top code represents a program area, not a individual course, and colleges may name their programs differently, but top codes provide a consistent way or structure to compare similar programs across institutions. You might be more familiar with zip codes or classification of instructional program that all the other institutions use, but again, California community colleges only use top codes for right now. And if you're interested, I can go into detail about that. So for this instance, we'll just choose accounting just because it's a very robust program across almost all institutions. So after selecting that, you may select the disaggregations such as gender, ethnicity, or special populations. And the four core indicators are going to be post-secondary retention and placement, earn a post-secondary credential, non-traditional program enrollment, and employment. So if you're interested more in the employment side, you can select employment for the related top code and college that you selected. And this helps answer questions like, are gaps narrowing or widening? Are outcomes improving consistently for all groups? Are there specific populations where progress is stalled? And the emphasis here is not about ranking, but more about direction of change, which is critical for equity planning. And then just based off of this data set, we can see that females graduating for the program have had about a 25% drop, over the last program year, which would, as a potential dean, would prompt to look a little bit further into maybe why that's happening. Okay, and then going into the next tab. So the all core indicators, this view brings together all four Perkins core indicators, retention and placement, credential attainment, non-traditional enrollment, and employment into a single longitudinal view for a program. It's especially useful for program review discussions where the question isn't just how did we do last year, but what patterns are emerging right now. So again, similar options. And it pre-populates the college and TOPCO that you selected in the previous tab. So all there. Couldn't find one, but if you get an NA or if no data is displayed, that's because there wasn't enough data, less than 10 students that reported for that metric or special population. So there'd be nothing that would populate. So just an FYI, but we do have the note here in the tool as well. Highest performance percentage. This section highlights programs that are performing strongly relative to district negotiated goals. Rather than using a ranking tool, colleges often use it as a way to identify effective practices, programs that might offer insight into what's working well, and they could be scaled or adapted elsewhere into other programs. The 90% district negotiated goal. This view focuses on whether programs meet the 90% district negotiated performance threshold. An intent here isn't to label programs as failing or succeeding, but to quickly identify where additional explanation, context, or targeted strategies may be needed for Perkins reporting and planning. This is especially useful when preparing CLNA narratives or Perkins applications. And then we have positive performance change here. This section highlights where performance is improved between fiscal years, supports conversations about which interventions or program changes may be having a positive impact and where momentum is building, and maybe looking at improvement over time, or looking at the improvement over time. Negative performance change is similar to the positive. This view just helps identify where performances have declined. The purpose here is early awareness, spotting areas that may need closer attention or additional context again before they become persistent issues. And then core indicators. So this is what I would call more of the dean view. This is where everything's kind of compiled together. This detailed table allows users to see program level performances across all core indicators for a selected year, college, and student group. So if we were to, this one you would have to select again if it were MiraCosta. And if you see MiraCosta, the way it's defined here, it's not spelled properly, but this is the way that's currently being reported through the Perkins data. So we match how it's being reported from the Chancellor's office to not mess things up. And it's part of the Python code that we use to scrape the data. But anyways, selecting MiraCosta, and then you can choose again, well, for this instance, you'd probably want to look at all the programs that exist, again, from a dean level view. And this is often used when colleges need precise figures for documentation, planning, or reporting, while staying on the same dashboard environment. And last but not least, we get to the definition and terms. The definition section is critical for responsible use of the data. So it clearly defines CTE concentrators, each core indicator, the special populations, and district negotiated goals. And this helps ensure that users interpret the data consistently and understand what the limitations are. Again, talking about that NA, or when there's less than 10 individuals or students associated with a program. Okay, so on to the next. So And this slide shows how we move beyond compliance and turn required reporting into something that actually supports improvement. On the left, we start with Perkins reporting. This is the compliance side, meaning that federal requirement using pre-calculated core indicators. The dashboard streamlined this process, so colleges spend less time pulling numbers and more time understanding them. And then just for a little bit of context, each Perkins core indicator table, you have to select the college, followed by the top code, followed by the special group, and you get the one table. The Python code that we've developed to pull that data for just one college for about 3 years takes about 2 hours to scrape. So being able to scrape just the 10 colleges for a few years is a couple of days worth of data scraping through Python. So we're trying to save the colleges time on looking up those individual pieces and just giving them all the data into one simple dashboard. So sometimes the only ask is make the data more user-friendly or accessible. And that's what we hope we did with that dashboard. So the next step here is equity planning. So by disaggregating the same data, we can identify gaps that might not be visible in overall averages. And this allows colleges to see which student populations are experiencing different outcomes and where focused attention is needed. And then finally, we move into improvement strategies. So by looking at trends over time and not just a single year snapshot, we can assess whether interventions are working and where adjustments may be necessary. So are we moving the needle on what we're focused on or spending money on? And the key takeaway is that it isn't new data or extra work. It's about using the same required data more intentionally, moving from reporting to insight to action, which you'll probably hear me say a lot. Okay, and then the program fact sheets dashboard. This is a labor market specific dashboard. It answers a practical question colleges regularly ask. Do our program offerings match the region's economic demand? And this is done by visualizing and comparing student completions with regional job openings and wages. And this dashboard helps users quickly assess alignment through supply gaps, oversupply, and it's often used in program review, redesign, and conversations with employers. Okay. So again, just a little more insight. The program fact sheets are designed to bring together labor market demand, program supply, student outcomes, equity context, all into one place, organized at the top code level, no surprise. And this tool was originally developed to support colleges biennial review, program review, not biannual. And this is a state guidance that requires that all programs be evaluated every 2 years using a streamlined labor market analysis. So as a result, most design and formatting decisions were made with the expectation that the output would generate a clean, printable PDF report suitable for format program submission. So let me switch back to over here and switch, okay, the program fact sheets. Okay, so the landing page or the overview selection page here, this is the starting point and is where you would select county, institution, and top code. So for this instance, we'll wait for it to refresh. Anytime now. Let me refresh one more time. Okay, there we go. So you'll choose, because our region covers, again, Imperial and San Diego, you can choose between the two. We'll select San Diego. For this instance, we'll change it up. We'll select San Diego Mesa College. Again, we'll go with an accounting program. And when you make those selections, it will pre-populate the programs that are associated to that top code. For San Diego Mesa, there's only one program associated with accounting. So you can select accounting or select all. It would be the same thing. And once those selections are made, the program fact sheet updates to show how that specific top code from that college connects to occupations. These occupations here are what the colleges have selected are trainable by their program. So the last step that's needed is selecting the occupations. And then from these occupations, you have the SOC title, SOC code, the job description associated with the occupation, as well as typical entry-level education. But as mentioned, after these occupations are selected, all the subsequent tabs are pre-populated based off of those occupations. So if you go to Overview Summary, this summary page provides a quick, I guess, orientation, whether a supply gap exists, total regional demand, what the total top and zip code supply. So again, top code is California community colleges only, zip code everybody else, and these are completion rates or awards issued from student or to students. Then the occupations that are linked to the top code, which are the ones that we pre-selected, and this gives users a fast way to understand whether they're operating in a high demand, balance, or saturated program space before diving into any details. And then all the other metrics that you see here, does it pay above the living wage and so forth, again, are data points that are pulled from the subsequent tabs, just summarized here at the beginning. Oh, and then of course we have the overview catalog. This cites the programs at the college associated to the top code. So Mesa College has the one program, but split between two award levels. They have an associate degree program as well as a certificate of achievement program. So here we go to labor markets, demand versus supply. Here we can see the annual job opening. So this is the total demand based off the annual openings of the occupations that were selected. And then we have supply broken out again by top and zip codes. And this allows the user to see how many completers the region is producing, whether supply aligns with demand, where overlap across institutions exists. And this view is especially useful for, sorry about that, especially useful for regional coordination and avoiding unintentional program duplication. So if you're seeing this top code with this many awards being issued, again, this is going to be from the community colleges. This is going to be from the non-community colleges. And the reason it had to be split this way is certain programs, specifically business, have so many top and zip codes associated to those programs that the way this extends, doesn't look great when you print it out in PDF format. So they had to be separated this way. And then you have the portion here that talks about living wage. So it does an average of the living wage for the California Chancellor's Office. We're looking at the 25th percentile when determining whether an occupation or a group of occupations pay a living wage. For San Diego, it's currently $26.01, and that's using the California Family Needs Calculator, which has not been updated since February of 2024. So if it were to be updated to this year, it would probably be closer to $30 an hour. But looking at these occupations, when averaged together, comes out to be below the living wage, hence what you would have seen on the summary view. And then jumping to the occupation demographics, this section adds context by showing who is currently working in these occupations, including age, gender, race, ethnicity, and educational attainment at the bottom. I'll show you that in a sec. And these comparisons help colleges ask, do our enrollments reflect the workforce? Are certain groups underrepresented relative to the occupation? And are there equity or outreach implications for the program? So here you have, again, because we have San Diego selected, the population breakdown by age, gender, race, ethnicity, and so forth on the top level, followed by that same breakdown by occupation. So these occupations, again, what was pre-selected in the original selection sheet. So age, gender, race, or ethnicity, and then national educational attainment. This metric, I believe it's Bureau of Labor Statistics, and it's the educational attainment for workers 25 and older that populates this data. But yeah, so going on to the labor market award breakouts. So this one is specific just to the top code that we have selected. So this one being accounting. So this page shows awards by institution and award type, including community colleges and non-community college providers. And this helps clarify whether supply pressure is coming from within the community college system or from the broader post-secondary landscape. And again, this is specific just to San Diego. It's often used to support regional conversations rather than institutional level judgment. And I guess another way you could see this is maybe as career exploration. If you have a student that's in this pathway of accounting at one of the community colleges, they're nearly done with their associates, and they're maybe interested in furthering their education in getting a bachelor's or master's. You'd be able to scroll down here and see which institutions of higher ed have students completing those programs. And then they could explore from there. Okay, student enrollment trends. So this one, the enrollment trends provide a longitudinal view of students' interest in the program area or students enrolled in the program. And this allows colleges to compare local enrollment trends, regional patterns, statewide context. You can look at any specific year when comparing. But again, this is specific to the accounting program that you have selected. How many students are enrolled statewide? Again, for program year 22-23 for this example. Region-wide, which would be San Diego and Imperial counties, and each institution individually, how many students are enrolled in accounting. This is pretty much the exact same thing, just for different metrics, whether it's transfers, employment, demographics. It's all the relatively the same breakout. I won't go to deep explanation on those. I'll just kind of skip to the final section on this one, which pulls the multiple elements together for the labor market demand, wages, supply, and employment outcomes into a single table. So this is often used for program review, Perkins planning, and narrative development, because it allows users to reference multiple indicators without switching tools. So this will be, again, specific to, let's say, San Diego Mesa. And it has, again, I would probably reference this to more of a dean's eye view, where they can look at all the programs at their college and they can see, based on the program, which ones are training for occupations that pay above the living wage, which ones have a supply gap, and so forth. It's just, when deans ask for something, it's typically they want to look at everything at once. They don't want to look at one individual program at a time. But yeah, that's the program fact sheets. And so the program fact sheet data supports decisions about program viability. Colleges use it to evaluate existing programs, justify new program proposals or modifications, and engage employers using shared data through employer work groups. And usually leads to really robust conversations, because they typically cite that what's being cited through BLS is not close enough to what they're actually paying in wages. But here, the balance here shows, or the balance here reflects the ongoing need to align program offerings with labor market needs while maintaining relevance and quality. A little bit harder than it looks, but yeah. So moving on to the equity gaps dashboard, this is going to be applying an equity lens. So focusing specifically on who may be underrepresented or overrepresented in priority programs. The core question here is, which populations face barriers and which programs are facing the most disparity. And by highlighting gender disparities or ethnicity disparities, allowing users to sort by gap size, the dashboard helps colleges prioritize where equity-focused intervention may have the greatest impact. Another thing, I mentioned this before, all of these tools, other than the program fact sheets, were the result of us creating a report where the need was to have a more active and user or having a tool where people can, I guess, navigate the data that would be incorporated into our reports. So we have an equity gaps report. This is just the tool version of our equity gaps report. So this dashboard, the last one, is designed to help colleges examine equity gaps in program participation across San Diego and Imperial counties. It looks at who is enrolled in which programs using top codes, no surprise, and compares program level participation to overall college enrollment patterns. So that would be the baseline. And the goal isn't to label programs as good or bad, but to surface patterns that may warrant deeper conversation. So just tease out that information, I guess. Okay, so switching back. So the priority program, yes. Let me just refresh so we don't run into that issue again. Okay. So this section provides a broad scan of gender representation across top code programs. You can filter by college. We'll go back to Maricosta again. We know how Maricosta spelled. Oh, they got corrected. Yeah, never mind. So selecting college. This one I wouldn't recommend drilling down to the top code. You'd probably want to see as many programs as possible. But the percentages here reflect the share of program full-time enrolled students attributed to the selected, in this case, gender. So we have a equity gaps table and an equity gaps graph, and also an ethnicity equity gaps table and an ethnicity equity gaps graph. So these are kind of paired together. These are paired together. And you can use this to identify where patterns stand out and decide where additional context or inquiry may be useful. So if you're probably wondering here, what's a priority program? Oh, wait. Oh, sorry, I thought I missed something. You might be wondering, what's a priority program? Priority program is basically that the program trains for a priority occupation. And you're probably thinking, okay, what's a priority occupation? A priority occupation is an occupation that meets three metrics as defined by the Centers of Excellence. One is that it's considered high demand. Number two being that it pays a living wage, and for San Diego being that $26.01. And number three is that it's a middle skill job. And then if you're probably wondering, what's a middle skill job? That's going to be an occupation that has a typical entry-level education that requires more than a high school degree, but less than a bachelor's. With a few caveats, but I won't go down that rabbit hole. If you're interested, I can give you the full detailed definition on what a middle skill job is. But that should give you a little bit of premise on what's a priority program and what's not a priority program when making the selections on here. Okay, so you'll have this breakout, but I kind of prefer the graph version here because this view narrows the focus to a single college and compares gender participation across its programs. Each bar represents a top-coded program. You just have to, this one doesn't pre-populate what you select in the previous sheet. You have to select the top code or priority programs and gender every time. But again, each bar represents a top-coded program, while the reference line reflects the overall gender average in this case. So programs falling noticeably below that benchmark suggest areas where participation may not reflect the broader student population. And this view is especially useful for quickly prioritizing programs for discussion without needing to interpret large table numbers. So just looking at this, you'd be able to see that automotive has the lowest representation for females, with females being about 57% of the student population. And then you flip it to males, 9% in registered nursing. So that might be a talking point, with only 40% being male at, in this case, Maricosta College. And then if you're doing the math in your head and you're saying, wait, that's only 97%, that would be because their samples, when surveyed, students can be non-binary, not report, or unknown genders, and those data sets are excluded from this analysis. So you won't get an exactly 100%. So just an FYI for that. And then, of course, this is listed from underrepresented to overrepresented, and you can flip this as well around as well. And then jumping to ethnicity equity gaps table. This section applies the same approach to ethnicity, allowing users to examine representation on patterns for specific student groups across programs. So the filters here make it possible to focus on priority programs, individual colleges, or specific top codes. And this table helps identify where participation for a given ethnic group is lower or higher than the expected based overall college enrollment, which you can only do on the graphs. But let's say you select African American. Again, we go back to Mira Costa. You look under representation, see, oh, automotive technology. That's the only one that has under representation. Great. You want a little bit, maybe more context, you jump over to the graph. And this view shifts the college level perspective and visualizes ethnicity representation, again, across the priority programs. African American, priority, going to Maricosa. Always make sure you have the right filter selected. Again, we see that automotive technology is underrepresented for priority programs, but all other programs are represented or overrepresented for African American. And then if you're wondering, I don't know if I mentioned this, but priority programs are also career technical ed programs. That's one of the requirements to be considered, because in order to be trained for an occupation directly, it's a CTE program. So if you're looking at not priority programs, these are going to be the CTE programs and non-CTE programs. Well, for the CTE programs, it's going to be the ones that failed one of those three metrics, where it didn't pay a living wage, didn't have high demand, or did not train for a middle skill occupation. Or it's going to have non-CTE programs like Italian or library science general, basically all the general programs you would find here. So good way to navigate the tool. And sorry, trying to switch back. So the purpose of identifying equity gaps isn't simply to report or, again, make anyone feel good or bad about the program. It's to act on them. This data directly supports Perkins equity plans, outreach strategies by pinpointing to specific programs and populations. And the goal is to move from identifying disparities to designing targeted recruitment, support, or program changes that help close those gaps. And then they can be, this is just an example of another way that these tools can be used. And this is the final slide that brings everything together. So if there's a college that's evaluating how about creating a new CT program proposal, this would be the workflow. First, it starts with the context. Does the community demographic support this program? Then alignment, is there labor market demand and a living wage? Followed by performance. Do similar programs meet Perkins indicators? And finally, equity. How do we ensure the program doesn't replicate existing disparities? The dashboards are more powerful when used together as part of this integrated decision making. So that being said, if you're interested in seeing the slide deck right now, you can follow this QR code to get to the slide deck. And if you're interested in taking a survey, we have one here from the Centers of Excellence. But again, this PowerPoint will also be shared through the CCC TUG group. I think I saw a few questions falling in the chat.
Yes, I saw at least two. One was from Tanisha Laney that says, does the LA region have this same dashboard? I think that was one of the first ones, the profile that you were showing.
Oh, I thought it was the Perkins one.
I could be wrong.
The a lot of these dashboards are created by the San Diego Centers of Excellence, kind of just our region. Um, the LA, I think, does have the Perkins. I'd have to double check. If I find it, I'll put it. I know they do have. We partnered with them on one of these four dashboards. I'm pretty sure it's the Perkins, but I'll find it and I'll post it in the chat.
Awesome. And then Kim also asked, with the transition to zip codes, does the COE have plans to change?
Yes, that has been a very robust
Topic.
conversation. I'm not sure if anyone here was part of the webinar last week on the top to SIP conversion. So highlights from that is that the top to SIP conversion, we already have a crosswalk out there for people or for the colleges to use, and that the colleges should have their tops converted to SIPs by December of this year. With the tools with the Chancellor's Office incorporating them in 2027. And with changing from top to SIP, you're able to change your SIP code in your system without it being considered a substantial change. So there won't be any labor market data that has to be submitted with it to change to the SIP code that you're interested in. So that's a huge lift off the shoulders of the community colleges. So I think those are the biggest. But anything after December of 26, you're going to have to submit as if you're doing a modification or new program, changing from whatever top code you had to the zip code that you wanted. So I think those were the highlights.
So get the changes in by December.
Yes. And and I'll look for the crosswalk that does the top to SIP transition recommendations, also in the chat.
That'd be great.
Yep.
Does anyone else have any questions for John? Either in the chat or you can jump off mute. Okay, I'm going to take that silence as a no. But thank you so much. This was really great and enlightening. I don't work with labor market data, so this is really cool to kind of see all this stuff in this other area. So thank you so much. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Sam definitely doesn't need an introduction. She's our next presenter. She's going to show us the labor market dashboard that she has at Everett College.
Okay, thanks, Lisa. And yeah, thank you so much, John. I am going to try not to repeat everything John just said, because if you notice, this is all the exact same data that he was just showing, just in a slightly different format and specific to my county, not San Diego. But so when I first started back in July, this was the very first thing that they wanted me to work on, because the two main questions were, do the programs that we offer align with what's needed in the community right now? And then also on the flip side of that, are we offering, like, do the programs that we offer and align with the community, are we doing what we need for them, right? So there's two views here. This view lets you view it by the occupation. Yes. Oh, and David, I'm glad you're here. At the very end, I can give you the Washington resources if you want, but all my data sources that I give at the very end will be for California, so don't worry. I'm not going to give you irrelevant data. But so this view shows a lot of the labor market information that we can get by a single occupation, right? A single SOC code. And so these two right here are the only things that really talk about Everett. All of this is publicly available information that you can just go and download yourself. And so here, the first thing, let's see, there we go. So this first chart is the supply and demand report. And so it's really just showing how many jobs there are versus how many people are seeking employment through unemployment insurance. So this is only based on unemployment stats, but it still gives a very nice overview of kind of what's happening. And this makes sense, right? For tax preparers, it's not tax season, so it's going to go down. And then as tax season starts to approach with extensions and everything, it's going to go up. The next thing we have is those growth rate projections, so 5-year projections. So this just shows, I mean, we're almost done with this 2028 one. But yeah, over time, how is this occupation projected to grow? And then we have estimated wages, mean and median, specifically for my region. The wage data only does it by these 3 counties at once. I can't separate those. And then these last 2 I know I saw on John's somewhere. So the training assignments, so typical education needed for entry, typical on-the-job training, and work experience, right? So this kind of gives an overview of how much do we need to prepare our students if this is the plan, if this is their plan to go into this career. And then national educational attainment shows something very similar. And I highlighted the ones that we can actually, that we as a community college can actually target. Although we just started offering an accounting and a bachelor's in accounting, so I should highlight this one. But so this is the first view. Like I said, it's just the information for a single occupation at a time. But then the question became, okay, so if a student is in a specific program, for instance, accounting, what else can they do, right? So they can't, so tax preparers is not the only possible occupation for people in the accounting majors. And so, well, sorry, I'll go with business instead. I thought I did accounting as my example. But so this view is all of the occupations aligned with our business program. And Vanessa, I will talk about that at the end when I can go to the actual dashboard and show you. But so here, this first chart shows those same projections, those 5-year projections, but just again, by occupation instead of for a single occupation. Here, I did the mean estimated wages using the same data source that John has. So again, this is probably going to increase once we get that updated data. And then of the occupations that do align with this business program, what are their in-demand statuses? Are they in demand? Are they balanced? Not in demand? Or do we not have data for them? And sometimes this happens for various reasons. It wouldn't be happening in this case, but the biggest one I can think of is healthcare. Oftentimes has their own data sources, and I'll get into that a little bit too. And then again, that typical education needed. So 13 out of 17 of the occupations that align with the business program require a bachelor's degree. So that tells me and faculty working in the business program that the goal for students should be to transfer to get a bachelor's degree, not to get a job immediately out of Everett. So that kind of changes how advisors advise students and things like that, right? And so, yeah, those are the 2 views. So to toggle between pages without using navigation buttons, it's this is actually a parameter with dynamic zone visibility. And I wasn't planning on showing that, but I can bring it up real quick. Can you all see this dashboard, or is it still showing the slideshow?
We can see it.
Okay. Oh, and it's processing request. Okay. So show filters. So actually, let me go to a sheet real quick so I can show the parameter. Yeah, it's a parameter called page selection. I don't know why I did 2 through 4. I'm guessing I had plans to add more pages later. Usually I go from 0 and up. But so assigning an integer value to the page that I want, and the reason I do integers is just because it's faster for the Tableau workbook to process than it is for strings. And then all of my dynamic zone visibility calculations start with DZV, just so I can find them quickly. And so the way that you actually trigger it to show up is, oh, and it went to the wrong screen. So if the page selection is 4, then what it's going to do is set this to either true or false. And so then when I come over here, I can select my, oh boy, this is my least favorite part. But I can select where I have my charts. And so everything that I just selected in this vertical container is related to a single occupation. And so I go over here and control visibility using value. And so I select the one. So I want this to show only when that parameter is set to the occupation page. And so if that's true, it will show these charts. If it's false, it'll hide them and show whatever else is set to true. So for instance, when I select EVCC programs, it switches that parameter value to 3, and it hides all of the ones associated with the occupation. And now, if I select this container, and I don't know why I chose, oops, one of the innermost ones. Now it's set to page program. And I do the same thing with this show tables button. That's also dynamic zone visibility. And so this one is set to show only when the tables value is selected. And then if I go back to charts, this whole section will have charts right here. So it's kind of like layered dynamic zone visibility, if that makes sense. So Vanessa, hopefully that answered your question. I know that was pretty quick. And then the last view that I had is just the alignment table, because a lot of faculty were asking, well, how did you, like, why did you assign this occupation to my program? And I didn't. I used the crosswalk tool that is available online. And I don't think John linked to it. He linked to the top to SIP codes, but there's an occupation to program codes crosswalk as well. Did you know you can double click on the little, I did not know that. I'm always learning something from Lisa. Thank you, Lisa.
It's a good speed tip.
Yeah, I think I'm quick in Tableau, and then Lisa comes in and just like, you know, like the meme where it's just like dust. Yeah. Yes.
If you go through Ironvision, you too will be forced to be speedy.
No, thank you. Okay. So let's see. That was really all I had. If we have a little bit more time, so I can get into the Tableau prep if people are curious, but a lot of the Tableau prep is specific to the Washington data. But here I have, and if I can ask one of my co-leads to copy and paste the links because I can't see them anymore. These are all the resources that I used. So the SIP to SOP crosswalk, the labor market information. This says California. It's all available through some links that will be in the chat. And then the educational attainment and training, thank you, is from the BLS. John mentioned those as well. And then here, the employment projections for healthcare occupations are not available, at least for Washington State, they're not available in the same data set as these over here. And so there's a separate center, yeah, National Center for Health Workforce Analysis that has those projections specific to those occupations. So if your college is big in the healthcare industry, that's probably where you want to grab that data instead. And then the last resource that I will definitely say you should all utilize is your Regional Center of Excellence. I actually worked with ours up here to try and understand this data a little bit better. And I know that, like Tina, when we emailed her, she was very responsive. When I worked at San Bernardino Valley, I worked with the Inland Empire Center of Excellence. And so they are definitely a great resource to have if you need help with this data. And like you saw how much John had available for the San Diego region. So yes, please take advantage of those. And I'll skip it if people are curious about the Tableau prep stuff, I can show that later, I guess, or you can reach out. But I'm gonna go ahead and wrap up if there aren't any other questions. Okay. Um, so yeah, thank you so much everyone for being here. Please join us for our next meeting, which is actually a big collaboration with the Tableau public Tableau user group. So it's our spring break collaboration meeting. And Jeffrey Schaefer, who is the co-author of the Big Book of Dashboards and Dashboards That Deliver, which features our very own Kim Coots. He's going to be the community spotlight, so I highly recommend going to hear him talk. And then Dennis Cow and Emanuela Tudomi will be talking about some Viz of the Days that they created that are specific to education. And that's on March 19th from 9 to 10:30.
Different day, different time than our regular meeting. So
Yes, yeah. So normally we meet Wednesdays at 1. This is a Thursday at 9 a.m. meeting. So please put that on your calendars right now. And then, do you have something you want to share? If you want to present or give us feedback, please let us know. Here is the Google link for that. Can I? Oh, I can't just copy it. There we go. And then, yes, please, we need presenters. So please, please, please volunteer to present and we will reach out to you. And here's our contact information. If you don't want to go through that form or if there's anything else that you want to tell us, you can either email the Gmail or email us individually and we will get back to you. And that's it. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining today. And we hope to see you next time.